My goal in life was to be invisible. But Chloe Astor, the girl who walked like she owned the wind, had to slam right into my world. She said it was love at first sight, her reason being that I looked manageable. I ran. She chased. There was no escape. It got to the point where the whole campus was buzzing about how I'd made the queen bee cry. But the truth is, she was the one who cornered me, her eyes shining with a frightening intensity, and said, "Ethan Miller, I dare you to run again." My name is Ethan Miller. It's kind of a solid, normal name, I guess. But I'm not. I'm the definition of forgettable. I'm a junior, the kind of guy who could get lost in a crowd in 3 seconds flat. My greatest pleasures are holing up in my dorm to play video games or finding a quiet corner by a library window to chew through my physics textbooks. My life was like a well-written code, predictable but safe. Chloe Astor's arrival was a virus that crashed my entire system. I remember it perfectly. It was a Tuesday afternoon, gloomy and damp after a rainstorm. I was rushing to class, juggling a stack of heavy books I just checked out from the library. At a turn in the stairwell, I wasn't paying attention and collided with someone head-on. "Oh crap, I'm so sorry." I immediately apologized, dropping to my knees to frantically gather them. The first thing that entered my field of vision was a pair of scuffed Converse sneakers, the toe peeling away. Then a pair of slender ankles, and, finally, the frayed cuffs of washed-out jeans. "It's cool," a voice said. It was bright and clear, with a trace of sleepy laziness. I looked up and froze. It was Chloe Astor. There wasn't a soul at Northwood University who didn't know her. Not just because she was beautiful, though she was in a striking, impossible-to-ignore way, but because of the legendary stories that followed her. Like how she beat an RA in a push-up contest during freshman orientation, or how she single-handedly launched some student startup in her sophomore year and secured a 7-figure investment. Rumor had it her family was rich enough to buy half the campus. But you'd never know it. She dressed more casually than I did, usually a t-shirt and jeans, no makeup. Right now, she was crouched down, helping me pick up my books. Her fingers were long and slender, her nails clipped short and clean. "Ethan Miller." She picked up the top book, Foundations of General Relativity, glanced at the checkout label on the spine, and read my name. Her tone was flat, unreadable. That's me. I was flustered, reaching for the book. But she held on, her eyes scanning my face. They were dark, like deep pools of water, and held a strange, pressing weight. "Physics major?" she asked. "Yeah. Figures." A corner of her mouth seemed to twitch into a smile, but it vanished before I could be sure. She handed the books back to me, her fingertips brushing the back of my hand. They were a little cold. "Thanks," I said, clutching the stack, desperate to leave. "In a hurry?" she asked, not moving. "My next class. I'm going to be late." "Which building?" "Holloway Hall." "On my way there too." "Let's walk." She said it so casually, as if we were old friends. I was speechless. What could I say? No. But she just helped me, and she was being perfectly nice. Yes, but I wanted absolutely nothing to do with her. People like her, the campus celebrities, we lived in different universes. Getting close to them never ended well for a guy like me. In the end, I found myself walking beside her, my neck stiff. I could feel the stares of other students like needles on my back. She, however, was completely at ease, hands shoved in her jacket pockets. Her stride wasn't long, but it was quick, and I had to walk a little faster than usual to keep up. "You actually understand this stuff?" she asked suddenly, nodding her chin toward the book in my arms. "Barely." Oh, she didn't press further. The silence that followed was even more agonizing. When we reached Holloway Hall, I felt like I'd been granted a pardon. "Thanks again. My class is up here." "Yep," she nodded, stopping at the entrance and just watching me. I practically fled into the building. Even as I climbed the stairs to the second floor, I could feel her gaze stuck to my back. I didn't hear a single word of the lecture that day. The spot on my hand where her fingers had touched seemed to hold a lingering chill that wouldn't go away. I thought it was just a random, weird encounter, something to be forgotten. But the next day, I found her in my usual spot at the library. She was sitting at the table directly across from my favorite chair. A thick art history book was open in front of her, a half-empty coffee cup beside it. I stopped in my tracks, debating whether to just find a new spot, but she'd already seen me. She lifted a hand and gave me a small, subtle wave. Her expression was neutral, but her eyes said it all. Come sit. I was frozen, trapped. Eventually, I walked over, pulled out the chair, and sat down. Small world, I mumbled. Not really, she said, turning a page without looking up. I asked your roommate where you usually hang out. I was speechless. What was wrong with this person? She seemed to think nothing of her behavior, her attention fixed on her book. I had no choice but to take out my own textbook and force myself to focus. It was impossible. Her presence was too loud, not in sound or movement, but in her very aura. She could sit there silently for hours, occasionally sipping her coffee or tapping a finger on the table as she thought, and I was still acutely aware of her. As dinner time approached, she closed her book and stretched. Want to grab a bite? She asked me. I'm going to go later. Dining hall's perfect right now. Any later, and you'll hit the rush. She stood up, sliding her book in her backpack. Together, there was again that casual invitation that felt like a command. I looked up at her. She was standing by the table, head tilted slightly as she waited for my answer. Sunlight streamed through the window, tracing her hair in a soft, golden light. I noticed for the first time a tiny, pale scar just above her right eyebrow. You wouldn't see it unless you were looking closely. Sure, I heard myself say, and immediately wanted to kick myself. The walk to the dining hall was another gauntlet of stairs. She remained completely unfazed, even stopping to chat with a professor we passed. We got our food and sat across from each other. Her tray was a balanced mix of protein and vegetables. I just had a simple veggie wrap. She glanced at my plate, but didn't say anything. After a few bites, she spoke. Ethan, you got a girlfriend. I almost choked on my food. No. Cool, she nodded. Then I'm going to ask you out. I stared at her. I was pretty sure I'd misheard. What did you say? I said. She put down her fork, her expression as serious as if she were discussing a quantum mechanics problem. I think you're interesting, and I want to date you. What? My brain was completely blank. You look, she paused, searching for the right word, quiet and manageable. What kind of reason was that? Chloe, I tried to compose myself. We've met like twice. You don't know anything about me. Exactly. That's why we need to hang out more. So I can get to know you. Her logic was infuriatingly sound. This isn't a good idea, I said, putting my wrap down, my appetite gone. Why not? We're just not the same kind of people. What kind of people is that? She pushed. You know what I mean, I said, getting frustrated. You're Chloe Astor. I'm just some guy. So, she raised an eyebrow. Is there a university rule that says Chloe Astor can't ask out some guy? I was completely out of arguments. This girl didn't play by any known set of rules. From that day on, my life as an invisible man was officially over. Chloe started appearing in every corner of my existence. In the morning, she'd run into me outside my dorm, pressing a coffee or a bagel in my hands. You're too skinny. Eat breakfast was always her excuse. In class, she'd slide into the seat next to me, regardless of whether it was a class for her major. When the professor called on me and my mind went blank, she'd be there, whispering the answer. At the library, she would without fail occupy the seat across from me. Sometimes she'd read her own books. Other times she'd just rest her head on her arms and sleep, her breathing soft and even. Occasionally, a folded note would slide across the table, a goofy-looking doodle of an animal or a line from some weird poem. I never responded. She'd just crumple up the note and toss it, completely unbothered. The most unnerving part was how she started inserting herself into my life. She saw me wearing an old, frayed hoodie one day. The next morning, a brand new one from the university bookstore was sitting on my desk in my exact size. I bought the wrong size, and it's a hassle to return it. You can have it, she'd explained. My roommates went from shocked to teasing to being her willing accomplices. Ethan, dude, Chloe said to tell you not to eat cup noodles for dinner. She's bringing you a burrito bowl from that place downtown. Miller, your girl's waiting for you downstairs. I tried to avoid her. I switched floors in the library. I snuck out of my dorm half an hour early. I even tried taking the back exit out of the lecture hall. It was useless. She always found me, like the most patient predator hunting the clumsiest prey imaginable. One time, I finally snapped. I cornered her on a quiet path behind the science building. Chloe, what the hell do you want from me? She blinked, startled, Then a slow smile spread across her face. To date you. Isn't it obvious? I don't need this. My voice was louder than I intended, a tremor of desperation in it. Can you just leave me alone? You're driving me crazy. The words hung in the air. I regretted them instantly. They were too harsh. The smile faded from her face. She just stood there, looking at me, her dark eyes unreadable. My chest felt tight. I turned to walk away. Ethan, she called out behind me, her voice surprisingly calm. Do you hate me? My back was to her, my fists clenched at my sides. Yes, I heard myself say. A few seconds of silence passed. Then, I heard her whisper, okay, and the sound of her footsteps, walking away. I didn't turn around. After that day, she really did disappear. No morning coffees, no library coincidences, no doodles, no burrito bowls. My world was quiet again. I should have been relieved. But somewhere inside me, there was just an empty space. Habit is a terrifying thing. A week later, the rumors about me and Chloe started to spiral. They came in all flavors. Some said I was an idiot for rejecting her and that I'd made her cry. Others speculated that I had some secret medical condition or was hung up on someone else. The most ridiculous one claimed I came from a poor background and my pride wouldn't let me accept her, so I deliberately hurt her feelings. It got so bad my RA pulled me aside for a quiet chat, awkwardly advising me to handle my personal relationships carefully to avoid disrupting the floor community. I was furious. I was the victim here, so why was I being painted as the bad guy? On Friday night, I was the only one in my dorm room. My two roommates were at the campus esports arena for an all-nighter, and the other was out with his girlfriend. I stared at my computer screen, the game's home screen glowing, but I had no desire to play. On a whim, I opened the university's anonymous gossip app, Fizz. Sure enough, several of the top posts were about me and Chloe. Spill the tea. Who's the physics bro who broke Chloe Astor's heart? I almost choked on the term physics bro. The comment thread was hundreds of messages long. Opie is exaggerating. Miller is cute in a nerdy way, but he's no heartbreaker. He got that clean-cut vibe, though. And I heard he's a genius, gets top scholarships every year. So Chloe's into his brain. Nah, I bet he's playing hard to get. A girl like Chloe has seen it all. Maybe she's into that. Happy face this. Total power move. Am I the only one who feels bad for Chloe? Someone saw her near Holloway Hall the other day, and her eyes were all red. Ethan Miller is a jerk. How dare he make our queen sad? I slammed my laptop shut, my chest feeling even tighter. Hard to get? Jerk? I was being totally railroaded. Just then my phone rang. It was an unknown number. I answered. Hello. Silence on the other end, just a faint static. Hello, who is this? It's me. It was Chloe's voice, thick and raspy, like she'd been crying. My stomach dropped. What's up? I'm on the roof of your dorm, she sniffled. The rooftop. I shot up from my chair. What are you doing up there? Getting some air. She paused, her voice softening. Come up here. Chloe, don't do anything stupid. My scalp prickled with fear. Then come up, she repeated, her voice stubborn. Don't move. I grabbed a jacket and sprinted out of the room. I took the stairs 2 and 3 at a time, my heart hammering against my ribs. The wind on the rooftop was fierce, nearly blinding me. She was there, just as she'd said, huddled in a corner to block the wind. She was wearing a thin sweater, her arms wrapped around her knees. Her hair was a mess, whipped around by the wind, and I could see the faint tracks of dried tears on her cheeks. She looked pathetic. I walked over, still breathing heavily. Are you insane? It's freezing up here. She looked up, her eyes and nose red, like an abandoned rabbit. But the words that came out of her mouth were not cute at all. Ethan Miller, you said you hated me, she said, her gaze fixed on me, each word deliberate. Is that true? The wind howled around us. I stared at her, unable to speak. She waited. When I didn't answer, the light in her eyes slowly dimmed. She dropped her head, burying her face in her knees. Her shoulders started to shake. Liar, she whispered, her voice so small it was almost lost in the wind. You do. You hate me. I sighed. Crouching down, I met her gaze. I don't hate you, I said. She looked up abruptly, her eyes even redder. Then why did you avoid me? Why did you say that? Because. I struggled for the words. Because I wasn't used to it. because I was scared, because it all felt unreal. None of those felt quite right. Chloe, I started trying to explain. We're too different. You put me under a lot of pressure. What different? She pressed. Because my family has money. It's more than that. Then what is it? Your Chloe asked her. I repeated what I'd said before, but my tone was much softer. Everyone watches you. And when you're near me, everyone watches me. I don't like that feeling. She went quiet. After a moment, she said in a small voice, so you don't hate me. No, you just don't like being watched. You could say that. That's easy, she said, wiping her eyes, a spark of her old energy returning. We could be a secret. What? We'll keep it on the down low. Her eyes lit up. I'll be sneaky about it. How about that? Her logic was something else. I looked at her shining eyes, the hope in them practically spilling out. The word no was stuck in my throat, and I had to admit, seeing her cry had made me feel weird, unsettled, whatever, I mumbled, turning my head away. A teary smile broke across her face. She reached out and hooked her pinky finger with mine. Pinky swear. Her finger was still cold, but her grip was surprisingly strong. My relationship with Chloe entered a strange underground phase. On the surface, we were back to being strangers. No more public coincidences or gifts. But in private, my phone would buzz with a text from her. Ethan. The Grove. Third bench from the entrance. Quick, your boba is getting warm. After a 3-second internal battle, I'd close my book and walk across campus to meet her. She'd be there in a hoodie, the hood pulled up like a spy waiting for a drop. She would shove the still warm drink into my hand, then sit beside me, swinging her legs and chattering about trivial things. Which professor was balding, some boring activity her club was planning, how her cat had destroyed her curtains the day before. I mostly listened, offering a yeah or a every so often. She didn't seem to mind. Sometimes, she'd lean in close and stare at my face. Ethan, your eyelashes are really long. Or, your ears are turning red. I'd immediately push her away and tell her to act normal. She'd just giggle and lean back, her eyes curving into crescents. These secret meetings happened 2 or 3 times a week. The time and place were always random, entirely dependent on her mood. And I guess I was getting used to it. Used to her sudden texts, used to her noisy company, even used to the faint scent that clung to her, like sunshine on fresh-cut grass. One afternoon, she fell asleep leaning against my shoulder. Her breathing was even, her eyelashes like tiny fans against her cheeks. I sat perfectly still, not daring to move, until my entire side went numb. The setting sun cast dappled light through the leaves, dancing across her face. In that moment, my mind was completely quiet. I even thought to myself, this is actually kind of nice. But that secret equilibrium was shattered soon enough. As final exams approached, I was spending more and more time in the library. One night, as I was wrestling with a particularly dense textbook, I got a text from Chloe. Old spot. Brought you some late-night food. I replied, can't tonight. Have to finish this chapter for a review session tomorrow. She didn't text back. I figured she'd gone home. When the library's closing bell finally rang, I packed up my things. As I walked out the main doors, a blast of cold air hit me. And then I saw her, a familiar figure, crouched on the steps. Chloe. She was curled into a small ball, her chin tucked in her knees, an insulated bag sitting next to her. She looked up at the sound of my footsteps. Her nose was red from the cold. Why are you still here? I was shocked. It was almost 11 p.m. She stood up, a bit wobbly, her legs having fallen asleep. I instinctively reached out and grabbed her arm to steady her. Brought you food, she said, stuffing the bag into my hands. Her voice was muffled. You said you weren't coming, but you didn't say I couldn't bring it to you. The bag was still warm. I felt something shift inside my chest, a feeling that was both sore and soft. How long have you been waiting? Not long, she sniffled. Got here. Maybe right before closing. That was at least an hour. Are you an idiot? It's freezing out here, I said, my throat tight. You're the idiot, she shot back, though there was no heat in it. Skipping meals all the time. What are you trying to do? Achieve enlightenment. I held the heavy bag, looking at her pale face under the dim campus lights, and couldn't find a single word to say. Just go. I'm freezing, she said, rubbing her hands together and turning to leave. Chloe, I called after her. Yeah. Next time, I started. Don't do this again. Her face fell. Oh, I mean, I took a deep breath, feeling like I was making a monumental decision. Next time you bring something, just come inside and find me. Or, at least tell me you're waiting outside. She stared at me, her eyes slowly widening. Something lit up in them, brighter than the lamppost above us. Ethan Miller, she said, a slow smile spreading across her face. Are you worried about me? Think whatever you want. I turned and walked away quickly, the tips of my ears burning. She jogged to catch up, chattering excitedly beside me. You were totally worried. Hey, your ears are red again. Ethan, slow down. Somehow, the wind didn't feel as cold anymore. And in the night sky, a few stars seemed to be shining especially bright. The underground phase lasted less than 2 months before it was spectacularly and mortifyingly blown wide open. It happened at the university's annual fall track meet. I usually avoid these kinds of school spirit events like the plague, but our major had a participation quota, and I was strong-armed into running the 3,000-meter race. As a student athletics rep put it, "Come on, Miller. You look like you have good endurance. Just finish the race, that's all." Thanks a lot. The afternoon of the race was obnoxiously sunny. The track was surrounded by a massive crowd, the cheers deafening. I stood at the starting line, looking at the guys around me, all toned, athletic types flexing and getting hyped. I felt like a lamb that had wandered into a lion's den. The starting gun fired, and they shot off like arrows. I settled into my own pace at the back of the pack. Then, out of nowhere, Chloe appeared on the grassy infield next to the track. She didn't shout or cheer like everyone else. She just quietly kept pace with me. She was walking on the grass, I was jogging on the track. Whatever my speed, she matched it. Every so often, she'd glance over at me. The crowd's attention slowly shifted from the actual race to the two of us. Wolf whistles and whoops started to ripple through the stands. My face was on fire. I wished the track would open up and swallow me whole. "Chloe, go back," I hissed. "Nope," she said, her expression perfectly calm. "I'm with you. I don't need you to be. I'm worried you might pass out." By the 5th lap, I could barely breathe. My throat burned, and my legs felt like they were filled with lead. My pace slowed to a crawl. Chloe was still there. "Ethan, you got this." "2 more laps," she said softly. I didn't even have the energy to glare at her. On the final half lap, I was running on pure willpower. My vision was starting to blur at the edges. Suddenly, Chloe hopped the low barrier and jumped onto the track. The crowd absolutely erupted. Amidst a storm of gasps and cheers, she ran up to my side. "I'll pace you," she said, and then she grabbed my hand. Her palm was a little sweaty, but her grip was firm. I tried to pull away, but I had no strength left. Just like that, she held my hand, and in front of countless phone cameras and a roar that could have torn the roof off the stadium, she ran the final 100 meters with me. The second I crossed the finish line, I collapsed, my lungs heaving. Chloe knelt beside me, fanning my face with her hand. "You okay? Need some water?" Officials and students swarmed around us. I could hear voices, but my brain was a foggy mess. The only thing I could feel was the hand she had held, which was now tingling and hot. That night, the campus phys app exploded. There were photos and videos from every conceivable angle. Me, pale and gasping for air. Chloe, gracefully leaping over the barrier. And the money shot. Her holding my hand tightly on the track, the sun casting our long shadows behind us. The headlines were even more dramatic. "It's official. Chloe Astor goes full Prince Charming. Carries physics nerd Ethan Miller across finish line. Is this a movie scene? Campus Queen's public declaration of love at track meet. Deep dive. Who is Ethan Miller, and how did he tame the untamable Chloe Astor?" It was over. My cover was blown. There was no explaining this away. After the track meet, my relationship with Chloe was, in the eyes of the entire university, a done deal. My attempts to explain were met with knowing smiles. People just called me modest or shy. Chloe, for her part, adopted a stance of tacit agreement. When people would tease us, she'd just smile. I became even more determined to avoid being seen with her in public. But she seemed to revel in our new semi-public status. She no longer had to be sneaky about finding me. She could be bold, like showing up to my advanced physics lectures and saving me a seat, or appearing at the back door of my classroom the second the bell rang for lunch. I protested. She just replied, Ethan, you've already accepted it. Don't try to back out now. Accepted what? Accepted that you're my... She leaned in close, whispering in my ear, boyfriend in training. Her warm breath on my ear made me jump back. That's ridiculous. See? Your ears are red again, she laughed triumphantly. I was beginning to realize I was completely powerless against her. It was like she had an innate sense of where all my weak points were. In December, it was my birthday. I hadn't told anyone. I've never been big on birthdays. Growing up, my parents were always busy with work and often forgot. As I got older, it just seemed unnecessary. The day fell on a Saturday. My plan was to spend it, as usual, in the library. In the afternoon, Chloe texted me, saying she was waiting at the main campus gate and had something for me. I figured it was food or maybe a book. When I got to the gate, I couldn't see her. As I was looking around, a sleek black sedan pulled up silently beside me. The back window rolled down, revealing Chloe's face. Get in. I froze. I didn't recognize the make of the car, but it screamed expensive. Where are we going? I asked, not moving. To celebrate your birthday. Now hurry up. We can't park here, she urged. After a moment's hesitation, I pulled open the back door and got in. The interior was spacious, with a faint scent of leather and something floral. A well-dressed, middle-aged man was driving, his eyes fixed on the road. How did you know it was my birthday? I asked. If I want to know something, I can find out, she said with a smug little smile. The drive took about half an hour, ending in front of a discreet, high-end restaurant. A waiter led us to a quiet private room. The table was already set with elegant dinnerware, and there were even candles lit. Just the two of us. You really didn't have to do all this, I said. A birthday only comes once a year. It deserves a little ceremony, she said, pouring me a glass of water. Don't worry, it's my treat. That wasn't the point at all. I felt on edge throughout the entire meal. The food was exquisite, but I barely tasted it. She, on the other hand, was cheerful, chatting away about anything and everything. After dinner, she produced a small gift bag and handed it to me. Happy birthday. I took it. Inside was a dark blue, velvet-covered box. I opened it. It was a fountain pen. The body was a deep, shimmering blue, giving it a classic, substantial feel. I didn't recognize the brand, but I knew it wasn't cheap. I noticed the pen you always use is running out of ink, she said. This one should write better. I closed the box and pushed it back toward her. This is too much. I can't accept it. Her smile faded slightly. Why not? It's not appropriate. What's not appropriate about it? She went into interrogation mode again. We're not in that kind of relationship, I said quietly. The room fell silent, the only sound the soft crackle of the candle flame. She stared at me for a long time, the light dancing across her face. Then she picked up the box, opened it, and took out the pen. She grabbed the back of the menu. Give me your hand, she said. I hesitated, then extended my hand. She took my wrist and, using the new pen, began to write a single word in my palm, stroke by careful stroke. Chloe. The ink was a dark blue, almost the color of her eyes. Her handwriting was elegant, with a hint of stubbornness in the strokes. When she finished, she put the pen down, but didn't let go of my wrist. Her palm was warm against my skin. Ethan Miller, she said, her eyes locked on mine, deadly serious. Now, we have a relationship. I, Chloe, asked her, like you, I am pursuing you. This pen is a birthday gift, and it's also... She paused, her voice softening but remaining clear, a promise. If you accept the pen, you accept how I feel. If you don't, she bit her lip, I'll just keep chasing you. Until you do. The name of my palm felt like a searing brand. A hot tingle spread up my entire arm. I looked into her eyes. The light in them was fierce, passionate, and even a little bit desperate. I opened my mouth, but no sound came out. I stared at the name in my palm, Chloe, the blue ink sharp and bright. She was still holding my wrist, her grip firm. Her eyes were fixed on my face, as if afraid to miss the slightest flicker of emotion. I could feel my own heart thudding against my ribs. A waiter came in with dessert, saw the scene, froze for a second, then quickly put the plates down and backed out of the room. It was just us again and the soft crackle of the candles. Chloe, I finally found my voice. It came out raspy. You, yeah. Her voice was laced with a tension she couldn't hide. You can let go now, I said, gently trying to pull my wrist back. She hesitated, then slowly released her grip. The skin where she'd held me still felt warm. I looked down at the name in my hand for a long moment. Then, I reached across the table and picked up the dark blue velvet box. I carefully placed the pen back inside and closed the lid. I saw the light in Chloe's eyes dim with every move I made. Her lips pressed into a tight line, but I didn't push the box back to her. Instead, I closed my hand around it. Tightly. "I'll take the gift," I said. Her head shot up, her eyes instantly flaring back to life, bright as fireworks against a night sky. "Really?" "Yeah," I nodded, feeling the heat rise to my ears again. But what?" Her face fell again with worry. "But," I paused, meeting her gaze head on. "This isn't how you pursue someone." She blinked, confused. "It can't just be you giving things all the time," I struggled to explain. "It can't always be you chasing me. I needed to give something back, or at the very least, stop being a passive target." It took her a few seconds, but then understanding dawned, and a slow, brilliant smile spread across her face. "Ethan Miller." She leaned forward, her eyes curving into happy crescents. "Are you saying I should expect a counterattack?" "Think whatever you want," I said, looking away and taking a sip of water to hide my burning face. But I held the box with the pen tightly in my hand. Later, I slipped it into the inside pocket of my jacket, right next to my heart. I could feel its hard outline. The second half of dinner felt completely different. She was still chattering away, but the joy in her eyes was impossible to contain. In the car on the way back, she was in such a good mood, she started humming a song, slightly off-key, but not unpleasant. I saw the driver glance at us in the rearview mirror, a faint smile on his own lips. When we got back to campus, I stepped out of the car. She rolled down the window. "Ethan." I turned back. "Happy birthday," she grinned, her eyes sparkling. "And I'm really happy." The car pulled away. I stood at the campus gate, the cool night air on my face. But the spot on my chest where the pen was resting felt incredibly warm. I reached into my pocket and touched the box. Something inside me felt different. After I accepted the pen, I noticed Chloe's pursuit tactics changed a little. It was no longer a one-sided, full-frontal assault. She started to leave me some space. She'd still come to my classes sometimes, but not every single one. And when she did, she wouldn't always sit right next to me. Sometimes she'd take a seat a few chairs away. Her texts were different, too. They were no longer commands. "Ethan, there's a graphic novel about quantum mechanics in the library, third floor social sciences wing. It's actually pretty funny. Want to check it out? The dining hall has a new stir-fry station tonight. The Kung Pao chicken is supposed to be good. Wanna try it together?" They always ended with a question now, giving me the illusion of choice. Of course, most of the time, I still went. I went to see the quantum mechanics graphic novel, which turned out to be a silly comic book that used science as a punchline. She giggled through the whole thing while I just shook my head. "We want to try the new stir-fry station. It was actually pretty good." She piled half the chicken from her plate onto mine, saying, "You're too skinny. Eat more." I found I didn't mind it so much anymore. In fact, on the rare occasion she was busy with her own department's projects and couldn't find me, I'd be staring at my textbook and feel a little off. I'd catch myself checking my phone or glancing toward the classroom door. One afternoon, she was working on a design sketch on her tablet, and I was reading a paper next to her. Halfway through, she slid the tablet over. "Ethan, look at this line. Does it seem weird to you?" I leaned in a look. It was a fashion design sketch, very Chloe. Bold, sharp, and clean. "Where?" I knew nothing about design. "Right here, the waistline. It doesn't feel smooth enough," she said, pointing at the screen, her brow furrowed. I studied it for a while, but couldn't see a thing wrong. "I think it looks good." "You're just saying that," she pouted. "No, really," I said honestly. "I don't get it, but I think it looks great." She stared at me for a couple of seconds, then broke into a smile. "Fine, I won't ask you anymore," she said, pulling the tablet back, looking pleased. "As long as you think it's great, that's good enough." She went back to her drawing, humming another off-key tune. I went back to my paper, but I felt the corner of my mouth turn up on its own. That weekend, she dragged me to a small, niche art exhibit. The gallery was quiet, with only a few other people there. She stood in front of a large, abstract painting full of violent splashes of color for a long time. "Can you tell what this is?" she asked me. I stared at it. an overturned paint palette. She burst out laughing. It's the artist's vision of the Big Bang, she said, pointing to a fiery burst of color at the center of the canvas. That's the singularity. And all this spreading out, that's matter and energy. She began to explain it to me, her eyes shining, her voice filled with a rare confidence and passion that came from being in her element. I listened quietly. In that moment, I felt like I was seeing a different Chloe. Not the headstrong campus queen who chased me around, but a girl who had a deep understanding and love for her craft. It's kind of the same idea as your general relativity, right? She asked when she finished, turning to me. I looked into her sparkling eyes and felt a gentle stir in my chest. Yeah, I nodded. A little bit. It was getting dark when we left the gallery. She bundled up her coat. Come on, I'll take you to get something amazing. I know this taco place hidden in an alleyway. It's the best. The taco spot was hard to find, but the food was incredible. The tortillas were fresh, the meat was perfectly seasoned, and she ate with such gusto that her nose beaded with sweat. Well, she asked expectantly. It's amazing. I told you, she said, beaming. On the way back, we walked side by side, mostly in silence. But it was a comfortable silence, a quiet harmony. As we neared her dorm, she stopped. Ethan, yeah, did you have fun today? She asked, her face softened by the glow of the streetlights. I thought about it and nodded. I did. She was genuinely trying to connect with me in a way I would appreciate. It was still a little clumsy, a little tentative, but I could feel the sincerity behind it. She smiled, her eyes crinkling. Good. She waved. Get inside, it's getting cold. I watched her turn and disappear into her dorm, her steps light and bouncy. I stood there for a moment before heading up to my own room. The pen in my jacket pocket was a quiet, steady weight against my chest, like a warm, beating heart. Winter break arrived, and the campus emptied out almost overnight. I stayed behind, having picked up a tutoring gig to make some money. I didn't go home. There wasn't really anyone waiting for me. My parents were always traveling for business and rarely home for the holidays. Chloe's family lived in the city, but she seemed to have a lot of free time, showing up on campus every few days. Her excuse was always that the university library is quiet and good for creative work. Then I'd coincidentally run into her, either outside my dorm or near the community where I tutored. She'd always have a hot chocolate or a box of fresh pastries with her. I bought too much, can't finish it all, she'd say. A couple of days before Christmas, my tutoring session ended early. I had just walked out of the suburban neighborhood when I saw her across the street. She was wearing a white puffer jacket and a bright red scarf, hopping from foot to foot in the cold, looking like a little sparrow waiting to be fed. She saw me and waved enthusiastically. I crossed the street. What are you doing here? It's freezing. It's almost Christmas, she said, shoving a heavy paper bag into my arms. My tea was warm to the touch. My mom made lasagna and insisted I bring you some. I was stunned. The bag held a heavy, insulated container. Your mom. She knows about you. Chloe cut me off casually. I told her I have a friend who's staying on campus alone for the holidays. She made me bring this. Friend. The word sounded a little strange coming from her, but also different. Please thank your mom for me, I said, holding the container. It was heavy. Don't worry about it. She waved her hand, her nose red from the cold. Go on, get back before it gets cold. I looked at her. Have you eaten? I ate before I left. We made a huge batch today, she said, urging me to go. Go on, I'll watch you get back inside. I walked back, holding the lasagna. At the entrance to my apartment complex, I turned and looked back. She was still standing there, her red scarf a brilliant splash of color against the gray winter street. When she saw me look back, she waved again, even bigger this time. I lifted my hand and gave a small wave back before turning and going inside. Back in my quiet, rented room, I opened the container. The lasagna was still steaming. It was rich and cheesy, perfectly cooked. I ate every last bite. My stomach was warm, and so was my heart. On Christmas Eve, I was reading in my room when my phone buzzed. It was a video call from Chloe. I hesitated for a second, then answered. Her face filled the screen. In the background, I could see her living room, alive with the sounds of a television and people laughing. Ethan, Merry Christmas, she beamed into the camera. Merry Christmas, I said. Have you eaten yet? Not yet. I was going to grab some frozen pizza from the store later. What Just frozen pizza, she frowned. That's so sad. It's fine. It's easy. Someone called her name from off-screen. She answered, then turned back to me. Hang on, don't hang up. The screen wobbled as she ran off. A moment later, she was back, pointing the camera at a dining table laden with a massive holiday feast. Look, my family's Christmas dinner. Jealous. I looked at the incredible spread of food. Very, I admitted honestly. Ha, she laughed, then turned the camera to a graceful, middle-aged woman. Mom, this is Ethan. I immediately sat up straighter, feeling a surge of nervousness. Hi, Mrs. Astor. Merry Christmas. Chloe's mom smiled warmly into the camera. Ethan, dear, Merry Christmas to you, too. You make sure you're eating well while you're on your own. Thank you, I will, I said. Chloe talks about you all the time. Says you're brilliant and a very steady young man, she said kindly. My face felt hot. I had no idea how to respond. Chloe flipped the camera back to herself and gave me a wink. We chatted for a few more minutes before her family called her to dinner, and she hung up. Outside my window, the first fireworks of New Year's Eve were starting to pop. The room was silent, but for the first time, the holidays didn't feel quite so lonely. Just before midnight on the 31st, my phone rang again. It was Chloe. Ethan, go to your balcony, quick. Her voice was buzzing with excitement. I walked out onto the small balcony of my rental. The night sky was already filled with brilliant, exploding colors. See them? The fireworks, she shouted over the phone. I see them. Happy New Year. Her voice was mixed with the explosions, a little muffled but full of life. Happy New Year, Chloe, I said softly, watching the spectacle. She was quiet for a few seconds on the other end. Then I heard her say, her voice soft but clear, Ethan, next year, and the year after, and the year after that. Every year from now on, let's watch the fireworks together. Okay. The fireworks crackled and boomed overhead. My heart seemed to explode right along with them. Okay, I said. The new semester began, and my relationship with Chloe settled into a strange but stable rhythm. I guess we were somewhere beyond friends, but not quite officially a couple. Everyone else, however, assumed we were. My roommates had even started calling her my old lady, which she, to my surprise, answered to quite cheerfully. I stopped trying to correct them. It didn't seem worth the effort. March rolled around, and with it, Chloe's birthday. For the first time in my life, I had to seriously consider what to buy a girl as a gift. It was harder than solving a partial differential equation. I tried to subtly ask her what she wanted. She just blinked her eyes and said, I'll love anything you give me. Completely useless. I searched online, asked my roommates, who offered terrible suggestions, and even secretly consulted a few girls in my program. In the end, I decided on a necklace. It wasn't from a fancy brand, but I saw it after visiting dozens of shops and knew it was the one. It had a delicate silver chain and a small pendant, a piece of moonstone carved into the shape of a tiny feather. It shimmered with a soft blue light. It just felt like her. For her birthday, her family threw her a party at a private club. She insisted I come. I showed up in my most formal outfit, which was just a clean button-down shirt and dark jeans, clutching the small gift bag. Standing at the glittering entrance of the club, I almost couldn't make myself go inside. Chloe came out to get me. She was wearing a champagne-colored dress, her hair was done up, and she had on light makeup. She looked beautiful. So beautiful it was hard to look directly at her. What are you spacing out for? Get in here. She grabbed my wrist and pulled me inside. The place was packed. Music, lights, and a cacophony of voices filled the air. They were all faces I didn't recognize, all dressed in a casually expensive way I couldn't comprehend. When they saw Chloe dragging me in, all eyes turned to us. Curious, appraising, friendly, and maybe a few not-so-friendly looks. I felt like an ugly duckling who had stumbled into a flock of swans. Chloe, however, held my hand tightly and introduced me to her friends. This is Ethan, was all she'd say, but her voice held a note of pride I couldn't miss. Her friends were all nice enough, smiling and saying hello, but I still felt completely out of place. When she went to greet some of the guests, I found a sofa in a quiet corner and tried to make myself as small as possible. The party was lively, games, karaoke, dancing. Chloe was the center of it all, a radiant sun. I just watched her from my corner. Every so often, she'd look across the room, catch my eye, and smile, mouthing, "You okay?" I'd nod. I wasn't really, but I didn't want to ruin her night. When it was time for the cake, everyone started chanting for her to make a wish. She closed her eyes, a serious expression on her face, and wished for a long time. Then she blew out the candles. Amid the cheers, she suddenly looked right at me and announced, "My third wish is—" The room quieted down, everyone looking at her curiously. My heart jumped into my throat. "I hope I love the present Ethan got me." The room exploded with laughter and teasing. All eyes were on me again. My face felt like it was on fire. This girl, she was doing it on purpose. She grinned and made her way through the crowd to me, holding out her hand. Present. My own hand was a little sweaty as I pulled the small bag from my pocket and gave it to her. She took it, opened it, and pulled out the little box. She opened it. The moonstone feather glowed softly under the club's ambient lighting. She stared at the necklace for a few seconds without saying a word. The people around us grew quiet. My stomach was in knots. Did she hate it? Was it too cheap? "Put it on for me," she said suddenly, her voice a little thick. She turned her back to me, sweeping her hair to one side to reveal the nape of her neck. My hands were shaking as I took the necklace. The clasp was tiny, and I fumbled with it for what felt like an eternity before it finally clicked shut. The cool feather pendant came to rest against the skin just below her collarbone. She turned back around, her fingers gently touching the small stone. She looked up at me, her eyes shining, looking as if they were filled with crushed stars. "Ethan," she smiled, but her eyes were a little watery. "I love it. I really, really love it." The crowd erupted in applause and whistles. Through the noise, she took a step forward and gave me a quick, light hug. It was over in a second, but I was frozen solid. I could smell the faint scent of her hair and feel the brief, soft warmth of her body against mine. In that instant, all the noise and lights around me faded away. All that was left was the thunderous beating of my own heart and her happy whisper, "I love it." After the party, the thin veil of pursuit between us seemed to evaporate completely. We started acting like any other couple on campus. We'd study together, eat in the dining hall, go to the movies on weekends, or just sit in the library, each reading our own books, occasionally looking up to meet each other's eyes and share a smile. She was clingy, but she knew my boundaries. I liked my quiet, and she was happy to share it with me. We'd have small arguments. I think the clothes she bought me were too brightly colored. She always said I dressed like a storm cloud, and she complained that I took too long to text back when I was in the middle of a game. But we never went to bed angry. She was always the first one to break, sending me a barrage of silly emojis, or just showing up at my door with a bag of snacks as a peace offering. By then, I wasn't even mad anymore. I just found her attempts to apologize without actually apologizing a little funny. I'd ruffle her hair and say, "It's fine," and she'd immediately light up like a cat that just got its favorite spot scratched. For spring break, we went on a short road trip to Boston with two other couples. It was the first time we'd spent time together off campus, like a real date. We squeezed through the crowds at Quincy Market, her holding up various skewers of food and insisting I try a bite of everything. We rented a tandem bike and rode along the Charles River, her sitting behind me with her arms around my waist, singing loudly and completely off-key. We wandered aimlessly through the city streets, hand in hand. Her hand was small and soft and fit perfectly in mine. One night, our friends decided we should check out a bar. I was hesitant, but Chloe's eyes were shining with curiosity, so I agreed. The bar was dark and loud. We found a booth and ordered some drinks. I'd never been much of a drinker, so I got something with low alcohol content. Chloe, ever the adventurer, ordered some cocktail with a flamboyant name. After a few sips, her cheeks were flushed and her eyes had a hazy look. She leaned close to my ear, her breath warm. "Ethan, let's go dance." I looked at the writhing mass of people on the dance floor and felt my skin crawl. "No way. Come on, please," she begged, tugging on my arm. "Seriously, no," I said, holding her steady. "You've had too much to drink." "I have not," she pouted, then suddenly stood up and started wobbling toward the dance floor. I quickly got up and pulled her back. "Don't be ridiculous. Sit down." "No," she whined, leaning her full weight against me, her hot cheek pressing against my neck. Our friends were laughing at us. I half-carried, half-dragged her back to the booth. She slumped against me, grumbling in protest, but didn't try to get up again. A few minutes later, she went quiet. Her breathing became deep and even. She'd fallen asleep. I couldn't help but smile. I let her rest against me, not moving a muscle. The bar lights swirled and the music pounded. But in my arms, she slept like a child. Her long eyelashes cast shadows on her cheeks, her lips slightly parted. I looked down at her, and my heart melted. In that moment, I knew with a profound, unshakable certainty. It was her. This bossy, impulsive girl who laughed like the sun and cried like a rabbit. This brilliant, silly, strong-willed, and surprisingly dependent person. I want to be with her always. On the train back home, she fell asleep on my shoulder. The sun streamed through the window, warm and pleasant. I took out my phone and quietly snapped a picture of her sleeping face. I set it as my lock screen. Looking at her peaceful expression, I thought, this is what happiness feels like. Senior year hit, and the campus atmosphere changed. Everyone was either cramming for the GREs or running around to career fairs. The future became a heavy, unavoidable topic. My grades were good, so I had my grad school acceptance at Northwood pretty much locked in. Chloe's family, however, seemed to have other plans for her, something about sending her abroad for a master's degree. For the first time, a shadow of uncertainty fell over our relationship. She didn't bring it up, and neither did I. We were both deliberately avoiding it. But you can't avoid something like that forever. One evening, we were taking a walk around the track. The autumn air was getting crisp. "Ethan," she said suddenly, "my parents, they want me to go abroad after graduation." My heart sank, but I kept my face neutral. "Oh yeah, where?" "England, maybe the U.S. West Coast." "They haven't decided," she said, kicking at a loose pebble. "To study design or maybe business. Something they think is useful." "What do you want to do?" I asked. "Me?" She stopped and looked at me, the track lights casting shadows across her face. "I don't know." Her eyes were filled with confusion and conflict. "Sometimes I think it would be great to see the world. Other times, it feels pointless." She didn't have to finish the sentence. I knew what she meant. Pointless to leave here. To leave me. We walked in silence for a bit. "If you want to go," I said finally, my voice a little dry, "you should go." She looked at me sharply. "And what about you?" "I'm staying here for grad school," I said. "It's a good program." "Ethan," she grabbed my arm, her voice edged with panic. "Is that all you have to say? You're not going to ask me to stay? Or something? Or something?" I knew what she meant. I stopped walking and turned to face her. "Chloe," I said seriously, "this is your future. You have to be the one to decide it. I can't, and I won't, use our relationship to hold you back. If you think going abroad is the best thing for you, then I support you. And if you decide you don't want to go, then we'll stay here together." But I paused, tightening my grip on her hand. "No matter where you are, I'll be here. I'm going to work hard and become better. So much better that, no matter how far you fly, when you look back, I'll be strong enough to catch you." I said the words slowly, but with absolute clarity. They were words I had been thinking about for a long time. Chloe looked at me, her eyes slowly filling with tears. She threw her arms around me, burying her face in my chest. "You're a jerk, Ethan Miller," she mumbled. "What do I do now? Why do you have to say things like that?" Her voice was thick with tears. "You're making it even harder to leave." I smiled and gently patted her back. "Then don't force yourself." She shook her head against my chest, not saying anything. I knew it wasn't that simple. She needed time. She needed to talk to her family. And all I could do was what I'd promised. Stay here, get better, and be someone she could count on, no matter what she chose. After that night, we didn't talk about it again. Life went on as usual, but I noticed she started paying more attention to what was happening in my field of physics, even attending some advanced academic lectures with me. She was also looking for a future for us in her own way. Time flew by, and suddenly it was graduation season. Theses, defenses, farewell dinners, graduation photos. The air was thick with the bittersweet scent of departure. In the end, Chloe didn't apply to any schools abroad. After what she described as a long and brutal negotiation with her family, they reached a compromise. She could stay in the country for now and work at a design firm owned by her family's corporation, while also developing her own independent designer brand. "My dad said he wants to see what kind of trouble I can get into on my own first," she told me, looking both relieved and excited for the challenge. A huge weight lifted off my shoulders. At least for now, we wouldn't have to be apart. The day we took our graduation photos, the weather was perfect. The campus was filled with students in caps and gowns, their laughter echoing through the air. Chloe dragged me all over campus, taking pictures in all our significant spots. In front of the library, under the canopy of trees on the main quad, and at the stairwell where we first met. She looked like a happy kid in her cap and gown. "Ethan, look at the camera. Come on, smile. Don't look so serious." She linked her arm through mine, rested her head on my shoulder, and threw up a peace sign for the camera. The sun lit up her face, her smile so bright it was dazzling. Our friend, the photographer, called out, "Okay, hold that. 3, 2, 1. In the split second before the shutter clicked, Chloe stood on her tiptoes and planted a quick kiss on my cheek. Click! The moment was frozen. In the photo, I'm staring ahead in stunned surprise, my ears bright red. She's grinning triumphantly, her eyes curved into crescents. Our friends burst into cheers and laughter. "That's the one. We're blowing that one up and framing it." Chloe snatched the camera to look at the preview, laughing her head off. I looked at how happy she was, and my own embarrassment melted into a feeling of helpless affection. Let her have her fun. At the graduation gala that night, she went on stage as one of the student speakers. She looked stunning in a formal dress, standing in the spotlight, confident and radiant. At the end of her speech, she paused, her gaze sweeping over the audience until it found me. She spoke clearly into the microphone. "And finally, there's one person I want to thank." The auditorium went quiet. "Thank you for showing up in my ordinary life and showing me that loving someone can make you brave and reckless in the best way possible. And thank you for putting up with all my moods and my bossiness. The future is long. I look forward to spending it with you." She didn't say my name, but everyone knew who she was talking about. The spotlight operator, a true professional, even swung a beam over to me. I sat there, feeling the eyes of everyone in the room on me. But for the first time, I didn't look away. I looked at the brilliant, shining girl on the stage, and I smiled. I gave her a firm, deliberate nod. After the ceremony, people started to disperse. She gathered the hem of her dress and ran through the crowd, coming straight for me. Her makeup was still perfect, her eyes sparkling. "Ethan, was my speech okay?" "It was great." "So, do you have anything you want to say to me?" she asked, her eyes full of anticipation. I thought for a moment, then looked at her, my expression completely serious. "Chloe, yeah, so, I guess this means we're officially a thing now, right?" She stared at me for a second, then burst out laughing and playfully punched my arm. "Duh, you accepted my promise pen, remember? No takebacks." I laughed too, reaching out and taking her hand, my fingers lacing through hers. No takebacks, I promised. For the rest of my life. Graduation wasn't an ending. It was just the beginning.